Hello and welcome to our Eye on Africa programme. These are the top stories on the continent this Friday. Diamond tycoon Sam Matekane takes oath as Lesotho's new Prime Minister. The 64-year-old businessman formed his political party just 6 months ago before winning October elections. In Tunisia this week marks the official closure for submitting candidacies to run for parliamentary elections scheduled for December. Over 1,400 candidates have filed their documents, among them only 215 women. We'll be bringing you a special report from our team on the ground in the Tunisian capital. Also coming up for you, football with a twist. The game of Maracana, which was born in the 1970s in Ivory Coast, draws in people of all ages and can often be a springboard for youth players hoping to turn professional. Our top story on the continent then, Lesotho's new Prime Minister happens to be the wealthiest citizen of the mountain kingdom in southern Africa. Mining tycoon Sam Matekane was inaugurated this Friday, only 6 months after his political party was formed. Well, it comes after years of political instability in the country. France 24's Nadine Theron reports.
Opposition party leaders have congratulated Lesotho's new Prime Minister Sam Matekane after his inauguration in the capital of Maseru on Friday. The event was attended by a delegation sent by the United States' President Joe Biden, as well as several African leaders like the presidents of Tanzania and South Africa. Matekane promised to pay for his own inauguration ceremony, and he also told local media that he does not intend to draw a salary, but rather funnel those funds into local development projects. He can do that because he is Lesotho's wealthiest citizen with an estimated net worth of 10 billion euros. He's the owner of the Matekane group of companies with interests in construction, aviation, property and mining. He's also the owner of the country's only airline. Matekane promised to attract investment to the country in his inauguration speech. His party, the Revolution for Prosperity, was founded only 6 months ago, and it did not win the majority of votes, so it formed a coalition with two other parties to control Parliament's 120 seats. Matekane promised to downsize these cabinets and also have all members declare their assets to root out corruption. He was elected by Lesotho as their Prime Minister on the 7th of October. The constitutional monarchy has King Letšie III as the official head of state, but the king does not involve himself much in politics.
We take you to Tunisia next, as this week marks the official closing for submitting candidacies to run for parliamentary elections. They are scheduled for December the 17th. Over 1,400 candidates have filed their documents, among them only 215 women. Well, ahead of the polls, the election process is already facing tough criticism. Our correspondents on the ground in Tunis sent us this report.
In this Tunis office of the Elections Authority, Tarek Mejri is submitting his documents to become a candidate for the first time.
I feel happy to be the first in my neighborhood to submit my candidacy.
This radio host doesn't have political experience. He comes from the working-class neighborhood of Mnihla, and he's often involved in community projects. The new electoral law allows him to run as an individual without party support, but he needs 400 signatures from registered voters in his constituency to sponsor him.
The new electoral law was really against parties and against a corrupt machine. At the same time, we found in this law some challenges, precisely because as individual candidates, we don't have the same international machine behind us. Financial machines, a party machine.
In his neighborhood, where Tarek speaks with young people, many find it difficult to restore their faith in politics. The new electoral law has its own problems. There's little supervision on sponsorship, and even the president admitted there have been breaches of rules. Ramzi, who's supporting Tarek, accepted to speak to us anonymously.
As we are all unemployed here, we don't have money. There are some candidates who come to you and say, hey, I'll drive you to the election office and give you 15 or 10 dinars. You sponsor me and leave. This happened so many times. I'm one of the people who did it.
Civil society election observer groups criticize the new electoral law because it doesn't guarantee equality for candidates.
There is still a male-dominated culture in society, especially in interior regions. It's difficult for women to run and campaign. We're worried there won't be many women in the new parliament.
Out of more than 1,400 candidates who submitted to run in the elections, just over 200 are women.
Well, last month, Mahamadou Issoufou, the former president of Niger, was appointed chair of the high-level panel on security, governance and development in the Sahel. On Thursday, then, he met with Mali's transitional leader, Assimi Goïta, to discuss challenges that are currently affecting the Sahel region. Well, topping that agenda was security, climate, economy and social development in the region. France 24's Sophie Lamotte reports.
It's still unclear whether any official decisions came out of this meeting held in Bamako on the 27th of October, but the two leaders came out saying that they shared similar views, especially in regards to the need to work together in the face of the terrorist expansion in the region. This meeting comes in a context when the Human Rights Watch NGO released a report on Thursday, and they showed that terrorist groups affiliated to the Islamic State had killed hundreds of civilians and forced thousands more to flee their homes since March 2022. The report also finds that the Islamic State had killed more than 500 people in the Gao region alone and targeted civilian villages, which constitutes war crimes. These civilians were mainly from the Aidak Sahak community, a pastoralist Berber in the region, pastoralist community. And according to this report, terrorist groups now control roughly 3/4 of the administrative districts in the northeast region of the country. Human Rights Watch have also documented abuses by the Malian army as well as other military groups suspected to be affiliated to the Wagner Russian paramilitary group. And in the midst of rising insecurity and the spread of terrorist groups in the region, Human Rights Watch as well as other NGOs are calling for increased Malian and UN boots on the ground and increased cooperation between the two groups.
Now, have you ever heard of the game of Maracana? Well, if you haven't, imagine a field with the same dimensions as a handball court, 6 players but no goalkeeper. That's pretty much describes the game of Maracana. It's a sort of football, you might say, invented in the 1970s on the Cocody University campus in Abidjan. Here you go, our correspondent sent us this report.
A field no larger than a handball court, 6 players on each team and no goalkeeper. The game of Maracana may draw inspiration from Brazilian-style football, but it's entirely an Ivorian creation.
Chez nous, il n'y a pas de retraite. Depuis donc l'âge de 15 ans, 10 ans, 12 ans, vous pouvez pratiquer le Maracana tant que votre capacité physique vous le permet, jusqu'à 90 ans.
The sport, whose name references the mythical Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, was born in the 1970s on Abidjan campuses. It's since spread to beaches, street corners, and even training fields across Ivory Coast. For many youngsters, the game is a good opportunity to showcase their skills and can even become a springboard from which to launch a professional career. More technical and less physical than traditional football, Maracana also offers opportunities for former pros who wish to extend their careers.
J'ai joué au stade et puis à l'Africa et j'ai joué à l'international au Burkina. Donc c'est après ma carrière en 2010, voilà, je me suis reconverti au Maracana.
The Ivorian national team recently won its 8th consecutive Maracan, the sport's equivalent of AFCON. The country's federation now hopes to one day see Maracana officially recognized as an Olympic discipline.
You're up to date with the news from the African continent. We'll have a short break. After me will be Brian Quinn here for the next Live from Paris show. Do stay tuned. You're watching France 24.
Cuando vas a la playa piensa en la arena, las vacaciones, bañarse en el mar. Y yo cuando veo la playa me recuerda a los levantamientos.
Each year, hundreds of migrants die trying to reach Europe by crossing the Mediterranean. Forensic specialists, undertakers and Red Cross workers struggle to identify deceased and missing persons.
Este nació en Alger el día 22 de octubre del 89, casado el chico, y que en este caso se contactó con el hermano.
The procedures are complicated and lengthy, sometimes taking weeks to return bodies to their home countries and loved ones. Watch Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.
Hello, I'm Annette Young, the host of the 51%. And in this week's special edition, we're here in the US as it gears up for the midterms. But with the Supreme Court having made that decision to roll back the constitutional right in accessing an abortion, these midterms have indeed become a milestone election for American women voters, especially here in the southern state of Kentucky.
The 51%, presented by Annette Young on France 24 and France24.com.